So good morning or good night, depending on where you are, and welcome to another interview of the Shield Dude in the Couch. Today I'm joined by Paul LaPlaca. He is the lead singer of October Thorns, and he also plays bass with Drift into Black, which I interviewed a while ago, and I also reviewed that album. So first of all, Paul, how are you today?
Doing great. I'm on vacation.
Oh yeah, it's always good to be on vacation. Did you have anything special planned for vacation?
I'm out with my family in Wisconsin, and we are doing a lot of swimming and hiking and just enjoying the summertime.
Oh yeah, that's always nice. Yeah, I never been myself to Wisconsin, but I heard it's nice. I'm down here in Miami, in Florida. So we're here. We're not here to talk about Drift into Black, even though that's another album that dropped. We're here to talk about October Thorns, which was your original band that you formed way back at the end of the 90s, if I'm not mistaken, beginning of the 2000s. And you guys had a 6-song demo, and you toured a little bit on it, but in 2001, you guys broke up. And then you did a few reunion shows, and now you're putting out these CDs for October 4th, the deluxe edition of Circle Game, and you re-recorded those 6 tracks and added some new tracks and some demos. So how was the process of like returning to those 6 original demo songs and working on them again and giving them a modern production after so many years?
Well, the original 6-song demo, it got some attention in the years since we broke up. And I had a couple different labels approach me, but the breakup was kind of, extremely painful and emotional. So revisiting that music in the early 2000s was really hard to do. And when I finally got around to accepting this deal from Dive Bomb Records, it was about maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and I was doing the remixes. And I was too close to the material to really separate myself. I was never happy. I was always fighting the mix, and I would stop and start and stop and start and get discouraged. And I finally just gave it over to Alex Argento from Icefish, because it was one of the best mixes and the best mastering I've heard. That Icefish debut is impeccable piece of engineering. So I reached out to him. And we didn't actually re-record any of that music. Those first 6 songs were just remixed and mastered properly for the first time. And then the song Sounds of Life, which is one of my originals that I demoed to the band, we included that demo, that was never finished. So we got up to about halfway through, and then I finished that song on my own. Like, I had to go in there and do the rest of the keyboards and do the vocals for the first time. And Leviathan is also something we never finished that I had to record brand new vocals for. So that was kind of a challenge. Like, how did I used to sing 20 years ago? But then we have some other demos that were very, raw, that I put on there just to show, before and after, what it sounded like with proper production and what it sounded like kind of live, just to show the range of the band and how far we had come.
Yeah, no, it's some of those vocals really reminded me of James LaBrie from Dream Theater in the old days.
Thank you. I was heavily influenced by Images and Words. Yeah, and that's exactly where I was then. I'd been struggling my whole life to be a vocalist, and I wasn't very good, and my friends were very honest with me. So I spent a year just practicing Metropolis off of Images and Words. And I did that song every day for a year. And that's when I got the call for October Thorns. Like, I was heavily influenced by LaBrie at that point.
Nice. Did you do like some vocal training, to get your vocal cords ready for that type of singing?
I have had several lessons with different teachers, and everyone has a different way of approaching, vocals, but it's all basically kind of the same thing. Anybody who really sings in that style, it's deceptively less aggressive than you think it is. when you sing high notes like that and sing that super clean style, it's very light, it's very effortless. And if you put any tension or muscular kind of force into that style of singing, that's how you ruin your voice, because you really can't do that. It has to be super relaxed. It has to be very light. So yeah, I studied pretty hard to be able to sing like that.
Yeah. So after October Thorns in the other bands that you played, you kept more to the bass and not the singing, or have you done more singing in the other bands that you played with?
It's really funny because, you know, after October Thorns, I auditioned for Prototype. It's a great prog band from California. Several New York City bands, even cover bands, you know, tribute bands, Queensryche, Iron Maiden. And I auditioned and auditioned and auditioned and failed.
You auditioned for Iron Maiden?
Iron Maiden, tribute bands, like in New York.
Oh,
so
okay.
I couldn't get a job in a cover band. So it was really demoralizing. You know, I'd spent all this time getting my voice together and I was fronting Thorns. And then, you know, in the last 20 years, I have not been able to really get another singing job. And then, you know, the first real professional job I had outside of Thorns was touring with our bass player, David Z's band, ZO2. They got the opening slot for Kiss and Poison in 2004. So I started as their technician. And once I got their set list, I saw that they had the violin tracks for Dirty Water from Mark Wood. He recorded them. Mark's from TSO, and he's very well known in his own right. But once I saw that on the set list, I was like, oh, I've got to play this. So I brought the keyboard to rehearsal and I played that song for them for the very first time that they ever played it live, and they heard those string parts, because Mark was never in the studio, you know, he was never in a rehearsal room with them. He just mailed in those violin parts. So I was able to play keyboards with ZO2 on the Kiss tour, and that was a dream come true. But, you know, I was a utility player and nobody even knew I was there. You know, it's like I would get off stage and no one would even recognize me. So it was bittersweet. You know, it's like I'm on stage, I'm on the road with Kiss, and nobody even knew I was there.
That could be a blessing and you know, and a curse too, because
Yep.
But yeah, that's an amazing story. And so you talked about, you know, the songs being worked with Icefish keyboardist and engineer Alex Argento. How was it working with him on the mixing of the mastering of those old demo songs?
Well, I love Alex. I think he's brilliant and he's very easygoing. And if you ask him how it was to work with me, he's probably going to say I was a big pain in the ass, because like I said, I was very closely attached to these songs. So I was nitpicky down to every breath. Like I really, really labored over this. And I made him remix it probably 10 different times.
I bet.
I'm very happy with the result. And I'm very mindful of how patient Alex was to see my vision come to life. He put up with a lot of minutia. Like I really focused on the tiniest aspects, and it came out, you know, 98% of exactly the way I wanted to hear it. So I have no complaints. You know, it was
nice.
Super close to perfect.
And the songs, you know, you can tell that they've been worked on, and because some of them have that, you listen to them and they have that like late 90s to 2000 type of sound,
right?
Especially in the prog. Like anyone who listens to prog, you know that sound.
Yes.
Because prog has evolved and it's gotten with Degent and some other stuff.
Right.
There's a newer band, not that newer now, that I think really does that type of prog like really good. I don't know if you've heard of them, Haken from they're so awesome, and yep. The singer, like I've seen them live, and I think they give Dream Theater a run for their money right now. But there's so different types of bands that play prog, but different styles, like a band like Lepros, which is like a prog, but his voice is the singer's voice. You know, it's amazing because it blends. The first albums they sounded more like Tool, but they evolved. So yeah, I think prog. I think now it's more accepted than in the 90s. I think in the 90s, they had people that like prog, but I think it's more viable for other people that probably didn't like that type of music to like it now. and I love prog bands. This band that I have the shirt on, Oceans of Slumber.
Yep.
That's another good, amazing band. So there's so many bands that have been influenced by those prog bands, for the prog from the 70s to the 80s, all the way to the 90s. So when you were reworking on this album, the first single, Circle Game, why did you pick that as a lead single?
Circle Game was the first song I heard from Dave Pando, who was the band's founder. And I answered an ad in the Village Voice, which was, pretty much every famous band from New York City has a Village Voice story, like Kiss. And I was very, the romantic notion of moving to New York City and answering a voice ad and becoming famous was something I was really, trying to live out that fantasy. And so I answered the ad, and Dave sent me Circle Game on a cassette with himself singing the lead vocal. So that's the first exposure I had to the band. And it starts with a clean guitar intro. And by the time the drums kick in and the heavy guitar comes in, I was on the phone with him. Like immediately I knew that I wanted to be in this band. So that's the reason, I kind of chose that to be the single. And of course, there's some imagery along with a circle, coming around full circle back to my beginning in the city as a vocalist.
Your roots.
And it's, my roots. And it's certainly the most accessible song in terms of songwriting. It's the one that is the least abrasive. We have a lot of different styles going on, a lot of heavy vocals. So this one feels like it's a single, so that's why we went that way.
Yeah, there's a song right now, I can't remember the name, but at the beginning sounded a little bit like Suicidal Tendencies meets Faith No More.
Right.
A little bit, yeah.
Yes, Exhausted Minds.
Yes, at the beginning of the part, it had like, it didn't go into full rapping, but I could tell the influences, and the bass was more like slap type of bass.
Yes.
So yeah, I heard the different influences, and there's some songs that have like more like classic, like heavy metal sounds,
right,
like those Iron Maidens of that type of music. So I want to show the artwork for the album here. Here we have, I'm gonna put it here. This is the album artwork for Circle Game. So who worked on this artwork?
I'm ashamed to not remember the name because the planning stage of this album is about 2 or 3 years old. Okay, so the last time I heard this artist's name was about 3 years ago when they were putting the packaging together. But this comes from Dive Bomb's in-house production staff. So it's one of their guys that they know very well. And it is amazing because initially I was going to call the album Soul Forge. And this is a depiction of the character from that song, the armless man going out to swim in low tide. So he really nailed this. And a lot of people say, oh, were you the model for that? And I'm like, God, I hope not.
Yeah, don't worry. That wasn't a question that I was going to make. Yeah.
Yeah. So I encourage anyone, that has the time to look up the artist's name because it's a nice piece of work.
Oh, yeah. And you can tell just by the artwork that it's prog. It's
right.
A very proggy artwork. Usually, when an album, because of an artwork, you basically would know what type of genre the album would be, just because of the album cover. So yeah, I think it's a cool album artwork, and it represents a lot of the music. I also like the other single that you chose, Page One.
Yes.
So you said that the other song is more like going back to your roots, and Page One, I interpret this as like this is us again. So Page One, this is a brand new start, or here we are, like a introduction to new people that wouldn't know the band. Am I assuming correct with that song?
Yep. Yeah, that's a very good assessment of it. And I believe this is the first song I did lyrics for. Circle Game was written before I got in the band. I think this is the one that I started on first.
Nice, yeah. It's another one that is quite accessible as well, and people could get into it. So I know that working on this album also was very important for you to keep the memory of Dave Z alive, who was the bassist for the band, who unfortunately died tragically, I think 2016-17, when he was touring with Adrenaline Mob. How important is to you to keep his musical legacy alive in this project?
Well, it's a fine line, trying to promote the album and be sensitive, to his passing. It's like anytime you mention his name, you have to bring up the fact that he's gone. So, some people kind of accuse me of being, trying to do a cash grab on this, which is laughable because everyone who does independent music knows that you're lucky if you break even. The whole thing costs, thousands and thousands of dollars just to
I think
make
it costs more to put it out.
It does. Yeah, I haven't seen more than $100 come back yet. So I'm hoping to, get my investment back. But Dave touched so many people, and he was in so many different projects, from Trans-Siberian Orchestra to his band ZO2 to Rubik's Cube, a tremendous 80s tribute band, Joan Jett, all these people he played with. So his memory is being kept very much alive through the foundation. The Dave Z Foundation is run by Paulie Z, his brother. So they try to use that platform to raise funds for music education. So I feel like I'm not the only one trying to keep his memory alive. I'm very much a part of this whole family of musicians and literal family. But for me, the thing that's most important to me about his legacy with this band is he was 19 at the time, and he was really, really, really into Rush and Dream Theater and trying to play at that level of technique. Whereas when he got into TSO and ZO2, it's a different animal, and they had to teach him to play groove and in the pocket. So he went from this very busy style to a very mature professional style, but didn't carry that speedy, multiple.
Yeah, so he had to relearn what he had to do because it was a different type of musical genre.
Yeah, when he came back to do the reunion shows, he would laugh and say, I can't even remember what I did. So he would have to relearn these old parts. So I want people to remember him for his real depth. Like, he could play so many different styles of music, and it's just, I feel like he hasn't been represented as a prog artist or a highly technical player. He's been, he played with Jeff Scott Soto, so he's got, some of those chops there, but this, I feel like, is his most technical playing. So that's really important to me, to share that and try to get people to see another aspect of his playing.
No, yeah, and people that say cash grab or anything like that, it's independent music. Just imagine right now, what would people say about the Foo Fighters continuing on that? They're cash grabbing on the drummer's death.
No, they have to keep going.
Yeah, no, I think you have to honor that. If Dave Grohl and Dave Novoselic would have done like Nirvana without Kurt Cobain, then I could say, yeah, that would have been a cash grab, because there's no way to replace him as a singer. But in this case, I think it's good to remember that that type of music that you guys played. Do you have plan of just your plans were only to release the album, or would you revisit the band with another lineup, or is that something that you wouldn't do?
It really depends on the demand, which I don't see yet. But it's difficult because most of the band members have moved to different places, or they've kind of retired from music. So it's hard to say. If the album does incredibly well and there's like a really high demand for a live performance, I'll revisit that. But at this point, this is strictly a tribute to the fans that stood by us in the early 2000s, and to Dave. So it's kind of a gift back
Yeah.
And hopefully a platform for everybody if they want to build on that to move forward with their next step. I certainly hope to, move on to the next recording project I have as, the vocalist from October Thorns and the bass player from Drift into Black, and kind of keep progressing with my career. And I would hope that everybody else in the band, if they chose, they could use this as a platform.
Yeah, that Drift into Black, that album's a great concept album. I really like the concept about the alien and falling in love. It's a great concept. How was the recording for you for that album?
It's working with Craig is a real pleasure. I played with Craig in Gray Skies Fallen, maybe about 3 years after October Thorns split. I can't remember what year it was because I was only with them for about 6 months because I started dating somebody in Alexandria, Virginia. So trying to go back and forth and spend time with my girlfriend and being in a full-time band, just couldn't pull it off. Yeah. But Craig left Gray Skies maybe 5-6 years ago and started his own project. And he was like, hey, do you want to lay down some bass tracks on my album? And so I did the first one, second one, and the third one. And it's always like, he'll send me the songs as they're in progress, and then I'll get the final version of the song. And he gives me complete freedom to do whatever I want on the bass. And there's only been once or twice, like on the 4 albums, that he said, could you play this or do this? Pretty much he lets me do whatever I want. And then I try to be as respectful of the song as possible. So this type of music does not call for busy bass playing. The drums are already carrying a lot of the intricacy, and there's a lot of layers and density. So as much as I want to play like Geddy Lee and Chris Squire for this stuff, I'm just like, I just hold down the bottom and I add some synth bass, some Taurus pedal, big stuff, but it's more for texture. And it's a good partnership because I don't crap all over his music, and he doesn't. He doesn't.
And he lets you do what you.
Yeah, he doesn't micromanage me because I basically just follow what he's doing. And the band, he finally decided to make Clem and Markle and myself full-time band members as opposed to just studio musicians. Nice. So it takes on a different feeling now that it's a band as opposed to a recording project. We're more invested, and the next one coming up is going to be really interesting.
Oh yeah, I told Greg that the next one should be the story about the alien going back home.
I love that idea.
Yeah, what happens when on his trip back home?
When he goes back, right?
Yeah, that would. I think lots of shit could happen.
Right? So it's almost like watching a movie. His writing.
Yes,
very
that's what I told him.
Right?
I told him when I was listening to the album, I said if this album would have been put out in the beginning of the 2000s, it would star Meg Ryan as the woman,
right,
and Nicolas Cage as the alien.
Exactly.
And then you have the romantic movie slash sci-fi, because they did a lot of those
back
in the day. So right when you're not, do you have like any new music that you're listening to? Any new bands that are inspiring for you?
Yes, I was working for Metal Temple last year. I was doing write-ups, and I stumbled upon a band from Brooklyn called Somnuri that I am absolutely in love with. It's very dark and stonerish, and there's some death metal aspects to it, but it's very, very, emotional. There's just something about it that it catches you, and I love that band. There's Rivers Ablaze from Europe that is a prog band that is brilliant, and it's kind of a one-man project, like the Vicious Head Society, which is kind of a one-man project that Clement, Drift into Black's drummer, also does studio drums for Vicious Head. And I think their album last year I describe it as the best album from Dream Theater that they never made. Because
that has to be good.
It's brilliant. It's just very well thought out, well constructed songs. There's a band called Thun, Thun, which is an outgrowth of the Bull Elephant family of bands. I don't know if you've heard of them. Very cool stuff.
No, I haven't. I need to listen to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Thun, Thun is remarkable. And then I can't remember the name. There's a Parisian death metal band that is just, or it might, I think it's black metal. It is so raw and amazing and just.
Did they put an album this year? Because
I think so. I can't remember their name.
Something
like,
Lord, I think.
I think so. It's like a 2-song EP, but the songs are like 20 minutes long. I really fell in love with that too. And it's super dark and super weird. You know, French people have a different way of doing death metal. It's very unique, right? It's completely like, yeesh.
it's very creepy,
right?
With the French.
And then I went to see Gojira. They're like just so good live, and I really
I saw them opening for Metallica back in 2009, where with the Way of All Flesh, and they're great, and their last albums, they keep improving. You know, last year 42 was my album of the year. I just think they're amazing because they can play death metal group, but they also can incorporate different sounds, and I love their lyrics. Everything you know about taking care of the planet. You know, they're an amazing band. Their drummer is so good.
Crazy.
You know, it's you know, I think like, you know, people talk about who's the next Metallica or something. I think Gojira is a band that are every album they're going higher. So I think they're gonna be more popular, and they're so talented. I love that band.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's a good thing because I think a lot of people think that us older folk stay like in the music that we grew up in high school and don't listen to it. But we're showing like there's still music out there, because there's a lot of people that like older people like ourselves that complain like, oh, there's no new music. There is. It's just that it's not played on the radio. You have to go and search it. And right now with streaming services, there's no excuse.
No excuse. Yeah.
It's just so easy to find. I have so many bands that I found because I listened to something and they gave me the suggestions, and I'm like, yeah, let me listen to that. So I think it's a great. There's great things about streaming, bad things, but it's a good way to discover more music. And if you like it, you just buy it physically.
Yep.
In the past, you bought something and it was a surprise. Sometimes it had a great song, and then the other songs weren't great. So that's something that wouldn't happen today.
Yeah.
So for people who want to get the CD deluxe version of Circle Game, do they contact the band or Dive Bomb to get the copies? I know that it was released in May.
Yep. You can go to either the band or the label website, and it's also available in Europe. There's 2 distributors that Dive Bomb is working through in Europe. So those are the 3 different places to kind of get it.
Nice. I'll post the links in the description for people who are interested in getting them and purchase it physically for this album. So Paul, I'm not going to take more of your time. You know, you're on vacation with your kids. So keep, I hope you have a great long weekend. And everyone, if you like progressive metal, especially that 90s sound, Dream Theater, Symphony X, listen to this October Thorns record, because, it's a great compilation of some demos, older songs, and some newer material. And if you like that type of metal, I think you will enjoy it. So it has a little bit for everyone. So again, Paul, thank you for taking some time to talk with me, and best success on when you work on the new Drift into Black album. I'm curious to where you're gonna take that.
Thank you so much, Hector. I appreciate it.
Okay, so people, until next time, this is Hector, the Shield on the Couch, and I'll see you right here on the couch. Thank you, and good night. And listen to Prague.